What are you doing? I swear to God, we got some animals back there. Hi guys, it's Leilani with Leilani Drinks the Brown Stuff, and thank you for joining me for another episode at our avocado ranch in our new backyard. Newish now, I guess, because it's been a few episodes. But before we get started tonight, I have to thank my girl, Christina Walsh. We used to do martial arts together. We studied at the same school and we trained. Little did I know, and little did she know, that I was an actress. And little did I know that she was an artist. And come to find out, she does amazing art pieces, even for places like Milan, and she just had a showing there, and she has a cool line that's actually wearable art. This is actually her art printed on a shirt. It's so fun and dope. It is 100% vegan fabrics. It is water-based inks, and it is sewn by the Canadian seamstresses that are well paid in Montreal. So that's always a big plus. And she has a great discount code for you. So if you want to DM her at @ChristinaWalsh44, go ahead and do so, and ask her for the Leilani discount number, and you can get your mother, your sister, an artist, someone. They had really cool shawls, everything, and it's one-of-a-kind pieces because it's from the art that she makes and creates, which is super cool. So big ups to Christina Walsh for sponsoring my really dope shirt tonight on Leilani Drinks the Brown Stuff. Woo woo! Now, speaking of friends, and my beast now, because I think a few episodes ago I stated that I don't think I've ever tried this particular brand of whiskey. And the reason why is I'm not going to go out and try a whiskey that I could possibly go to the grocery store and purchase. It's just not going to happen. I'd rather pick a whiskey that I'd never seen before, never heard before, never tried before, can't get it, and it's not readily available. I prefer that if I'm out and about. So I've always seen this. I just never got it, and I figured I'd probably get around to it eventually. So of course, my beast got me the Maker's Mark. Now, lo and behold, we had our Shelly Boo Odo come by for a photo shoot, and as a housewarming gift, she got me another one. Double trouble, double fisting it. That's what's going to be happening. So I hope I really like it, guys. So let's get into this, because there's a lot of information and a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. So tonight we are getting into Maker's Mark Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Now they state that it is cask strength, and then it's distilled and filtered down to 90 proof. Do not let the florally words fool you. Pretty much any whiskey worth its grain of whiskey does that. So it's not a new process. It's not something that's different or anything special about that terminology. All whiskeys come pretty much cask strength, and then it is filtered down. But it's filtered down to 90 proof. It is 45% ABV. It is under the Beam Suntory umbrella, which of course has been hit and miss with me. So let's see. Their mash bill is 70% corn, 16% wheat, and 14% malted barley. And their motto is one whiskey at a time, every time. I like the way that sounds. So they are the only distillery with a limestone water source and a watershed. They actually use like 150-year plus old heirloom yeast strain that ferments in like these tanks that are made out of cypress planks that are like 100+ years old, from like the old Burke's Distillery, which predates Maker's Mark. They have a double barrel still for their double barrel distillation process, and it is fabricated, and it was installed by who? You've heard this name before. They're all around Kentucky. You know this. Vendome, copper and brass. If y'all are all into welding and into brass and stuff, y'all really need to make it down to Kentucky and find yourself a job, because they be working. So they work with a number 3 char. Number 3, I think it was Wild Turkey that works with a number 5, if I'm correct. But guess what else they do? Because we talked about this as well. Because their distiller that was there for 14 years had went over to Woodinville, which was our episode a couple of weeks ago. And what did they do? What did they do? They beat them tannins. They beat them, y'all. And what does that mean? They just season them with the seasons. Now, Maker's Mark only seasons them for 9 months. Woodinville did it for, I think, anywhere from 14 to 16 months, if I'm correct. And they do this all beforehand, before putting any of this whiskey into the barrel. And speaking of hand, they rotate their 525-pound barrels by hand for 3 Kentucky summers, until like a tasting panel can determine whether it can go to a cooler section and if it's ready, because they age, they state, by taste, not by time. And this is the big thing I want to tell you about. This is what's so cool about companies like Cleveland Whiskey that's getting like flack for being so fast. It tastes good. You know, you can get these really awesome whiskeys that seem to be, ooh la la, at 15 years, at 12 years, and you're like, oh, this gotta be a great whiskey because it's been aged so long. Sometimes it's just stank. Sometimes they needed to have stopped at probably 6 or 7 years, but they didn't because they wanted to slap that 15-year label on it. Maybe they forgot about it, but now it's rank and gross, and it's not as good as you think it is, but you pay top dollar because it states 15 years. Y'all watch yourselves. I'm trying to tell you, sometimes whiskeys are amazing at 2 to 3 years old. They really are, and they could taste just as good as a 9-year-old whiskey. Allow your tasty buds to figure that out for itself. Don't suppress them. Let them go. That's what I'm here for. So, Bill Samuel Sr. started out this company by, and they didn't clarify it, they stated it, but he burnt up his family's 170-year-old family recipe. What? What are you doing? But he would then go on to bake like a ton of bread with various grain combos, and that cut out the distillation, and which ended up saving him like time on aging. He ended up, through this process of experimenting, switching out the rye for the red winter wheat. And that's how he came up with this flavor profile for Maker's Mark. However, his collaborator, Margie Samuels, she is what you see when you look at this bottle. She is the label. She is the shape of this bottle. She is the name, Maker's Mark. And she actually hand dipped like the first batches of the bottle at home in her house, in her fire, melting the red wax in that. Talk about a go-getter. And she was totally inspired by like 19th century cognac bottles. Bill Samuels Jr. became the president right around 1975, and he was a rocket scientist. He actually worked on the Polaris missile. He ended up making his mark by giving this brand its first brand new product in over 15 years in 2010 by developing Maker's Mark 46. Rob Samuels. Gotta get these names right so much. Rob Samuels is actually the head of Maker's Mark right now, and he is in charge of not screwing up the whiskey. And so far what he's done is he has developed a private barrel selection program where like retail and restaurant partners can actually go in and create their own taste visions by using the same wood finishing process that they do to make the Maker's Mark 46. He also helped develop the very first ever limestone cellar, where he's able to keep the private selection barrels and the Maker's Mark 46 at a very cool 50 degrees all year around. A lot of work, a lot of talking. I'm so ready. Let's get into this Maker's Mark. All I can say is, please let me like it, even if it's just a little bit. All right. I spoke to the whiskey gods. Let's hope they heard me. They have a little pull tab on the back, and I was able to just kind of pull, so that's nice. A little sticky. Oh, is that a screw top? After all? Yes. After the wax coating, I guess they were like, we can't afford cork. And so we get the screw top. But at least it's sealed, because we know what screw tops do when they're not sealed. So I'm okay with it for right now. Oh. Woman's pole, woman's pole. Let me get that woman's pole. Orangey. Barely any vanilla, barely any honey. Gets it. All right. Let's see. It smells like cheap whiskey. That's what it smells like. Some cheap gut rot. Let's see. I'm gonna try to aerate it really quick for y'all. Because it didn't smell so great. Still smells like the regular just bourbons I usually smell on the chopping line of most grocery stores. The caramel definitely came more forward with a little orange. It did have the explosion at the beginning instead of, you know, the middle or the end, which I tend to prefer. The burn is immediate. The caramel's there though, and the orange is just kind of just plain on top of everything. Okay. It's not, you know, terrible. It's not like some of the other store-bought bourbons. It's okay. But I don't find it yummy. I don't find anything special. It's just whatever, bourbon. It's not changing my mind. Yeah. So this is a brand that looks good. It looks good on your shelves. It looks good as a gift. It's okay for a Kentucky straight bourbon. It's probably one of the better ones that are store-bought that I have tried. It doesn't knock my socks off. I find it to be okay. The tasting palette, it's a nicer flavor profile than others. So basically, yeah, Leilani Drinks the Brown Stuff has to give Maker's Mark 2.5 kisses. You know, it's okay. I like the story. I like the history behind it. I like that the female did all of this stuff. The whiskey, maybe he should have, I don't know, not burned the 170-year-old family recipe, because I definitely would have wanted to try that instead. So Maker's Mark for Leilani Drinks the Brown Stuff doesn't hit the mark, but it doesn't miss the mark either. Here's your mark.